Thank you very much, Dr. Babin.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank all of our illustrious witnesses for being here today, and quite a record amongst the two ladies sitting out there. And as a father of 3 daughters and 7 granddaughters, that's very inspiring. So thank you for what you all have done. On April the 11th, 2018, this committee held a hearing titled Scholars or Spies? Foreign Plots Targeting America's Research and Development. On September the 27th, 16, this committee held a hearing titled Are We Losing the Space Race to China? On June 20th, 2014, this committee held a hearing titled NASA Security, Assessing the Agency's Efforts to Protect Sensitive Information. According to the U.S.-China Economic Security Review Commission annual report, China continues to pursue a broad counterspace program to challenge the U.S. information superiority in a conflict and disrupt or destroy U.S. satellites if necessary. Based on the number and diversity of China's existing developmental counterspace capabilities, China probably will be able to hold at risk U.S. national security satellites at every orbital regime over the next 5 to 10 years. China also undertakes significant effort to acquire and assimilate foreign technologies, especially from the United States. And in 2007, China conducted an anti-satellite test, which has already been mentioned today, that produced the largest amount of orbital debris in a single event. NASA's Orbital Debris Program Office estimated that roughly 30% of the objects greater than 10 centimeters would still be in orbit by 2035. In 2011, this debris passed within 6 kilometers of the ISS. Because of the risks posed by cooperation on space issues with China, Section 530 of the fiscal year 2019 Appropriations Act, as well as every Appropriations Act since 2011, prohibits NASA and the Office of Science and Technology Policy bilateral interaction with China unless the administration can certify that China does not pose a threat to U.S. technology and that they are no longer a violator of human rights. So, Mr. Rose, should the Appropriations Committee revisit this prohibition? And if so, how can we ensure the protection of our national security and prevent the theft of our nation's intellectual property?
Sir, I think you're absolutely correct that China is developing a full range of anti-satellite capabilities, and I've been very outspoken on this, both in and outside of government. I did not recommend in my testimony that the Congress repeal. What I did recommend is that we need to manage China. We need a comprehensive strategy, and as part of that comprehensive strategy, the committee should look at this. And this was driven, my testimony, by some comments that Charlie Bolden, the former administrator, made a couple of months ago. But I do not discount the potential threat that China poses to our space assets. However, we need to work with China on some of these sustainability issues. Okay. So, you know, we got to get a balance.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I'd like to add an op-ed here into the record, Madam Chair, if you don't mind. Navy industry partners are under cyber siege by Chinese hackers, review asserts. If you don't mind.
No objection.
All right, thank you. Now, I'd also like to ask all of you, if you don't mind, the International Space Station is one of our nation's greatest technological and international achievements. And currently, the U.S. and its partners are planning to operate the ISS through 2024. According to the National Research Council's Pathways report from 2014, if NASA maintains a presence on the ISS past 2024 without significant increases to NASA's overall budget, it will lack the resources to fund the development of systems that will push human presence beyond low Earth orbit until late in the next decade. This would leave the Orion vehicle without a clearly defined mission. Yet abandoning ISS could mean ceding global leadership in low Earth orbit to other nations. How do we resolve this dilemma? If additional funding is the answer, where do you propose that we get the additional funding? And Dr. Whitson, I'd like to ask that question of you first, and then maybe if we got time, Dr. Stofan.
Sure. I think it's a very complex question. We've had to deal with it in the past. When, for instance, we shut down the shuttle program with no capability to launch U.S. citizens into orbit, and we are still waiting 8 years later for that capability. So I think we have to be very careful about how we plan a transition so that we can do it in such a way that we still don't lose that leadership in low Earth orbit as we transition further beyond. So I do think it's an important question to ask. I'm not sure where the money comes from, but I think if we can encourage commercial and maybe even more international partnerships, maybe that could help us decrease the funding from the ISS and allow it to go.
Can we indulge, Madam Chairman, Dr. Stofan?
I agree with Peggy. I mean, the problem is, obviously, it's been long recognized that you need that wedge of funding that goes to the ISS, and certainly a deep space gateway would be a destination for Orion. So I do think you have to balance that retirement. And as Peggy said, I think commercial and international partnerships are critical to say, how do we maintain a presence, a human presence in low Earth orbit, while NASA focuses its resources on the next destination?
Okay. Thank you very much, and I yield back.
Thank you very